Hey y'all, I'm Yvonne with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make these little bird nest charms. So let's get started. So these are the recommended, or one of the recommended projects for our April 2024 craft along kits, and there'll be a link up here in the corner that'll take you to a video tour of what you can expect to find in your April kit. And if you're watching this and you don't have one of the kits, or it's sometime in the future and that kit is no longer offered on our website, backtoearthcreations.com, you can use whatever tools and materials that you have on hand. The techniques remain the same. So we're going to be using, and again, it's provided in the kit. We have these 6mm faceted Dalmatian jasper beads that I think are just perfect little quail eggs. And then we could use 20 or 22 gauge wire for this project. Now here, this bird's nest, I used 5 feet of the 22 gauge wire and about 3 feet of the 20 gauge. And this is going to be the style that I show you today. But this one here, we used 10 feet of the 22 gauge wire. And so you can get all sorts of different kind of styles and effects. And again, the technique remains the same or similar. There's always room for creative variation. So we're going to start with the 5 feet of the 22 gauge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a full arm span, and then add a little bit more. So that's 6 feet of wire, we'll call it. This is a pretty wire hungry design, but I mean, you could be a little stingy if you wanted, but I just want to show you how to make it the way I enjoy making them. So I'm going to come through. We have a 5mm knitting needle. Now you could use different sizes also. And I'm going to give myself about 10 inches of wire just off to the side here, out of the way. And I'm going to coil the remainder of this wire around our 5mm knitting needle. And I am just coiling kind of loosely. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure that you're not like backtracking, because that can kind of get messy quick. And more ways that we can make things simple for ourselves, I think the better. And so coil, coil, coil. And I want to do this project in real time with you. That way you get a good idea of, you know, how much time it actually takes. I always hate to sit down when I've got about an hour to work on a project and it turns out to be like a 4-hour project, you know, but so I try to let y'all know that going in. You can look at the video length and that's about how long this project is. So coil, 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 coil. And I'm going to leave about 10 inches uncoiled on the other end as well. So we're going to give that a nice solid smush, and then we're going to remove the knitting needle. And I'm going to grab at each end. I'm actually going to zoom out for this so that you can see. And we're going to just pull our arms apart. And you can see that gave us a nice wobbly line. I'm going to start here. I've grabbed a ring mandrel and I'm going to begin, you know, we can start here at the wide end. That's actually a little easier. I'm going to start here at the wide end. You could use a grooved or ungrooved mandrel, whichever you prefer, and I am just coiling down to the tip and then loosely back up. And then once I get there, I'm going to hold here at the tip and I'm just going to squish that down like taking off a silk stocking or something. Like just kind of down towards the toe or the narrow end of the bird nest. And I'm going to take one of our lengths of wire. I'm going to go with the one that's just a little longer. And I'm going to start doing a little bit of a whip stitch just through the middle. 2, 3, and 4. And you can see that's already looking like a pretty nice little nest. And now let's pick out our 3 beads. You could use a larger or a smaller bead. If I were using you know, maybe an 8mm bead, I may have been more inclined to use a thicker wire. So an 8 or 10mm bead, I would use like the 20 gauge wire. Whereas if I wanted to do 4mm beads, I may go as thin as 24 or even 26 gauge wire. So I'm just going to thread those 3 little quail egg looking beads on, and then I'm just going to shape them around like that. And I'm going to sew through kind of randomly in our bird's nest and just pull that kind of tight. And then I'm going to continue sewing through. I've looped around through there, and then I'm going to sew through, and this is just going to stabilize our beads in our nest. And then I'm going to poke through kind of randomly there on the side because my wire is getting a little short. And now we can come through with some round nose pliers, and I'm just going to make a little spiral because I'm a big fan of little spirals. And we can just tuck that in to the mess of the wire. This is a great project that if you want to utilize some scrap wire into it as well. But keep in mind it's going to make pokey ends, and that can make something like this difficult to wear from time to time. So if you're making it for home decor or for like on a wreath or something, the pokey ends might not be a problem, but if you're wearing it as jewelry, it could be. So it's just something to keep in mind. We can also, if you like, you can come through with your round nose pliers and just grab in different spots. Anything that just looks a little too straight line and tidy, you can come through and just kind of squish and smush and make it look like a bird's nest. And from here, I'm going to take this wire and I'm just going to sew it through just to stabilize, because this is what our bail is going to be. Now from here, if you had made this and you wanted to have it be an earring or a pendant, if it's an earring, you may want a smaller loop for attaching, you know, an earring hook to. You could go so far as to make a super cute little bird nest ring by just bringing it around, like bringing your wire. Now we would probably want about 16 inches of wire for this to do a ring band. We could use the same ring mandrel as before, and we just bring it around, and you kind of just sew through these other wires like that, and you can have it come through on the other side and come up and through. I mean, it's a nice and messy piece, so you can have it be however you like. Oop. And if it gets a little tricky, just use your pliers and you can pull that down. So here you can see, I'm going to make that at like a size 9. And we would finish off the end here like this, going flip, 2 and 3 little bind offs. And you could do, I like really thin ring bands, so I just did the 2, but if you had enough wire, you could do 3. And now pretend like we've snipped that for a moment, because I just wanted to show you the concept of the little bird nest ring, which is so cute, you guys. Like, oh my gosh. And you could make it smaller with some 4mm beads or maybe some 24 gauge wire, but that's a way to do it if you want a ring. But I'm going to undo all of that. And this is partially to just show y'all how to, well, what if you make something and you decide you don't like it? And this is where one of my favorite tools, nylon jaw pliers, come in really handy. Now, all the tools and materials that I'm using are linked down in the video description below, as well as, of course, the kit that you can purchase if you're interested. And if you're watching this very far in the future, hopefully we're still doing kits, depending on how far in the future you're watching this. The year is 2024 at the time of recording. And I'm just going to pull all that back out. Now the para-wire itself is very durable. Some may say super durable. But just by taking these nylon gel pliers and running them between the jaws of them, and the wire is actually very hot because it heats it up as it, the friction, but you can see how well that really smoothed it out. So we could take that same knitting needle, or you could use a ring or a stick mandrel, something thicker. You could use a pen, whatever size you want the loop to be. Use that size of a thing to wrap around. And I'm going to just sew through the edge of our nest to give ourselves a nice little inline bail that's well attached. There's 1, 2, and 3. I like 3. It's a nice solid connection. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap around the bail that we had made. There's once, twice, and thrice we've wrapped around. Just a nice little lashing. And then whichever side you want to be the front, you could just snip and tuck this wire, but I'm going to do a little spiral because, again, I like little spirals. I'm going to risk zooming in just a little so you can hopefully see well what's going on. And what I'm going to do to keep this spiral from snagging on things is I'm going to just kind of make it with my finger. We call this our itsy bitsy spiral because it's that motion of the itsy bitsy spider who likes to wire wrap. But I'm just going to bring it around. And then this little bit of tail wire here, I'm going to use my pliers and I'm going to feed that through our loop. Now if you're making this is this loop size that I use for if I want to make a pendant, but if you wanted to make earrings, you could make it smaller, or you could just do a single loop and then bind it off the same. That way it fits through an earring hook. And you can also take it and turn it, by putting the ring mandrel through, or the knitting needle. You could actually take it and then just force it into a turn. I'm not going to do that on this one, or because I don't want to distort it too much, but I can show you on this one here if you wanted to take it. These are different ways of doing the bails, but you can take this and just kind of twist it, and that way the bail would be parallel as opposed to perpendicular to the design. And you could use a jump ring even to attach to the earring hook. And I'm going to find my wee bitty. These are the round nose pliers that I typically like to use, and these are my petite round nose pliers. Both will be linked down below, but I don't tend to use these petite ones on over, if it's thicker than 20 gauge, like 18 gauge is right out, like for these. But for this 22 gauge though, it's going to make a perfect little spiral, nice and petite. So I'm just going to hold as close to the tip of the wire and as close to the tip of the pliers as I can. And we are just going to bring that around. And there we go, a nice little spiral for our little bird nest pendant. And you could string it on a chain. You could treat this as though it were a bead, where you can just string your beading cable through it and have it hanging down. So I hope that this video was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I love hearing from you. And if you would like to support the creation of more tutorials, you can consider joining our Happy Crafter Club or our YouTube channel membership or any of this stuff like that. But really the best way to support the channel is to just enjoy yourself and enjoy crafting, and hopefully, tickle my like button or any of those other things. But thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see y'all in the next video. And until then, happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.